we can be almost sure that Alexander never reached to that area, but this is not really relevant for us. What is relevant is that people believed that Alexander had arrived there and that he had established iron gates to block nomads from the other side of the Caucasus, okay? The historical context is that of the reign of Justinian. So we are in the middle of the 6th century. And it was composed to address a previous conflict. It was the conflict that opposed Justinian to the Persian king Khosrow Anushirvan. And the author of the Nesana uses the figure of Alexander with a very specific political agenda. It is basically reshaping some kind of political trend in Roman policy. It's the phenomenon of this so-called imitatio Alexandri that had been cherished and pushed by some Roman emperors with the intent of implying that a new Alexander will come to destroy Persia once more. But what is really peculiar to the Nesana is the way in which these previous trends are refined in a very peculiar way. Above all, we must say that Alexander here appears as a Christian prophet. And this is the first time that we witness this metamorphosis of Alexander, who is portrayed as a pious king who receives revelations by the Christian God and who vows to settle his throne in Jerusalem to welcome the arrival of the Messiah. And there is this apocalyptic ideology that is found in this text. It's some kind of re-elaboration of ideas that were already been propagated by another Syriac author, Afrahat, back in the 4th century. And the idea is that the Christianized Roman Empire towards the end of times will defeat Persia once more, and it will establish a cosmocracy to welcome the arrival of the Messiah. And on the background of this ideology, there are biblical prophecies, especially the Danielic prophecies in Daniel. Now, in this ideological framework and historical framework, there are two more things to be said that are relevant, very relevant for our conversation today to understand the origin of the Dhul-Qarnayn pericope. First of all, the author, to pursue his political and ideological agenda, uses previous traditions about Alexander, including the one about the iron gates that Alexander had allegedly built in the Caucasus, in an area around modern Georgia, I would say. So these traditions are well certified since at least the time of Josephus, so we are in the 1st century BCE. Of course, the historical Alexander probably never constructed any iron gates and probably never reached to that area.
But and that's what I read from Andrew Anderson Rooney has a really good paper on that subject, talking about the historical Alexander versus the Alexander of Romance tradition.
Yeah, that's a classical study. It's a bit outdated, but it's still one of the most, the best investigated. So
yeah, it's dawning on 100 years old, I believe. It came out in 1928 or 1932 or something like that. But that was my first introduction to comparing the historical Alexander to the one in the Romance, because I know that's where some people kind of get things mixed up. Like, okay, how could Dhul-Qarnayn be Alexander when Dhul-Qarnayn in the Quran is very different than the Alexander of history. But a lot of people, they don't take into account that, okay, the Quran might not be making a play on the Alexander of history, but the Alexander of a literary genre. So
Yeah. Absolutely, and we are, also with these legends, we can be almost sure that Alexander never reached to that area, but this is not really relevant for us. What is relevant is that people believed that Alexander had arrived there and that he had established iron gates to block nomads from the other side of the Caucasus. Okay, so